Yo, what is going on, guys? Hope you guys had a great weekend. My name is Hart for those of you that are new. And today I'll be breaking down this 11 game NBA slate here on DraftKings for Monday night, talking through some of my favorite plays, going over some core plays, some value plays, as well as building a potential lineup. As always, stay updated with the injury news for this slate. The best one is Underdog NBA on Twitter. Make sure to follow me on Twitter as well. And let's get right into this breakdown once you guys hit that like and subscribe button. So, jumping into this breakdown here, just a quick recap of my lineup. Here's my lineup for tonight. Pretty much did the same as the lineup build. Threw it in a single entry here right now. Just 2x, nothing crazy. Obviously, $10 there, but should be able to finish into cash. A lot of blowouts. Unfortunately, they kind of ruined the lineup here. Like Kawhi, their 30-point game. It does not look like he's going to get any fourth quarter run, which is very frustrating because he was having a pretty solid night there. Same thing with Jeremy Grant. Game blew out. He did not really get any stats there in the second half. Same thing here with Trey Young. Huge blowout there. So frustrating stuff, but should be able to cash anyways. Heading into this 11 game slate right now, let's take a look at some of the game totals for tomorrow. We're starting off here with the Bulls and Pacers, 226 total. Celtics Wizards, that's a 10-point spread. So obviously there's some blowout risk there. 229.5 game total. Nets Hornets, 228.5. Blazers Raptors, 217.5. Timberwolves Hawks, 234.5. So that's a solid one there to target. Excuse me. Mavs Grizzlies, 227. Pistons Thunder, 227. Heat Bucks 223.5. Warriors Pelicans 233. Another solid one there. Jazz Nuggets 231. And then we have the Magic and Lakers 221.5. So diving into the slate here, we'll start off with the Boston side. So for Boston, obviously we know the offense is going to run through Tatum there at 10-5. So he's a great spend up, even with the addition of Kristaps Porzingis, Andrew Holiday. Everything is still running through Tatum. He's running the show. As you can see, back-to-back games, 22 shots. So I like paying up for Tatum. It's not one of those things where I'm going to go right out of my way to do it, just because he is pretty expensive. And there's those other mouths on the team that they will feed with Porzingis, Brown, and Holiday. But it's just Jason Tatum. You can't go wrong by rostering him, especially in this matchup here. But there is blowout risk, so that's what makes these guys risky. Is that blowout risk, 10-point spread? But Kristaps has been great through the first two games. Only 12 shots that second game, did foul outs, but still 38 fantasy points. We know what we're going to get from Kristaps. Decent amount of rebounds. Should be aggressive offensively, especially from threes. So 8,300 is a fair price for him. Same thing with Jaylen Brown, fair price, 7,800. Had a little bit of a bounce back game there, 27 real life points, but still, I don't know if there's enough peripheral stats for Jaylen Brown to really pay off his price tag unless he goes off for like 40 real life points. Just with the addition of Porzingis and Holiday there, Holiday I think is a fine option there at 6,800. Talked about how I really liked him. Had a solid game there, 43.5 points in that last game, and then Derek White popped off. It's just one of those things I said there will be those games where Derek White randomly pops off, but as like the fourth slash fifth option, it's really going to be hard for him to do that consistently. Now, it was good seeing him get 28.5 that first game, 49.5 that second game, but I think it's just a fair price for him, and you just don't feel great rostering him just because they have Holiday, they have Brown, they have Porzingis, they have Tatum. So it's just too hard to trust him at almost 6,000 to really pay off that price tag. Where there's a bunch of other spots, guys who are cheaper, maybe a little bit more expensive that do have the green lights ahead of him. Al Horford will come off the bench here, playing about mid 20s minutes. Don't think you need to go to him. Pritchard will see some minutes, about 10. So they really don't have much value. I mean, they're throwing some Pritchard, some Hauser, and that's really it. So nothing too crazy to like here. Brissett will get a few minutes. He actually looked good that last game there with some few offensive rebounds, but nothing too crazy. So not a ton right now that's sticking out to me in the Boston side just because of that point spread. For the Washington side here, I think it's solid price tags for Kuzma, Poole, Jones, and Denny. It's just one of those things like, will the game stay close? If you do, I think you're gonna want to at least get one of Kuzma or Poole. But if you think this game doesn't stay close, then there's really no one to really get to. Gafford is questionable. If he's out, maybe they could get crazy. They could throw Bilal in there at starting center, but I would assume they're going to go down to Mike Muscala here at the flat minimum price tag, which I think could be a fine value play. It's just one of those things like this game could blow out, and then they could just run with some of these bench guys. But Right now, nothing too crazy is standing out to me. Maybe DeLon Wright's there, could get some blowout run. Been decent the first 2 games there. 4,700 is not the best price tag. Maybe you take a shot in Bilal. He's seen, minutes the first 2 games. If this game blows out, he could see extended minutes. He could be aggressive offensively. So I do think Bilal would probably be my favorite, and that's pretty gross. So not much to like there in that first game for me personally. On to the second game here. Zach LaVine absolutely went off that last game. 51 real life points, 0 assists there. Kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, that's what Zach can, kind of give you that huge upside. Comes into a solid price tag. Great matchup here versus Indiana. I like him a lot. I like DeMar DeRozan a lot. He is kind of scoring dependent at times. And then Vooch just really hasn't been the best. As you can see, 5 of 8, 4 of 15, 5 of 11. Been playing terrible, but he does get a good matchup here going against Indiana. All relatively cheap price tags still for all 3 of these guys here. So I do like those guys a lot. Vooch probably stands out to me as the best option. For Kobe White here, 5-1. I think he's a fine play. I mean, starting point guard 5-1, been aggressive through the first 2 games. Obviously, had a terrible game that last game, but still, I think Kobe White does stand out there with that price tag, even though he's kind of the 4th option. Pat Williams, just not for me. Caruso will get the backup run. I think he's an okay value play at 4,300. Torrey Craig, kind of the same thing. He'll see mid-20s minutes. Okay value play. And that's really it. Nothing too crazy here on the Chicago Bulls side. On to Indiana. Love Halliburton here at 9,400. He always seems to go off against the Bulls. 2 great games so far this season, so it looks like Tyrese will be a very, very solid play. I like Miles Turner once again. A decent bounce back game there, but it's one of those things he does foul a lot, so there's foul trouble risk. Still hasn't seen 30 minutes because of that foul trouble, but if he can see 30 minutes, they're going to want him out there guarding Vooch. He has a monster ceiling, so I do like him a decent amount here at 6,700 for this game tomorrow. So for right now, we'll just throw him into the lineup. Buddy Hield, coming off the bench, minutes have not been great, so he'll probably get traded at some point. But yeah, 57 for him is not for me. Benedict Mathurin, interesting. He only had 17 minutes. Not really sure what happened there, but he should start. Should hopefully see mid-20s minutes. But right now, the Pacers are kind of running a weird rotation where they're throwing in guys like Naismith, Jalen Smith, kind of into this lineup where they're all giving them kind of mid-20s minutes. So it kind of makes these shooting guards and small forwards for the Pacers not the best to play. I mean, Bruce Brown will start. He'll see, I guess, 30-ish minutes. I guess he's a fine play there at 5,300. Does have some upside. Naismith had the big game last game. But that's one of those things. It's like with these power forwards and small forwards, you really don't know who's going to have the big game. They're all probably around the same price tag as you can see. So right now, not much to like here. I mean, Jalen Smith's been productive, so 4,200 for him. Not terrible, but he's just not getting the minutes. So right now, it's kind of more of a stay away from me for these wings on the Indiana side. I'm sure one of them will have a good game. If I had to guess, it'd probably be Bruce Brown, but I think they're all in play. But I'd really just stick with Halliburton and Turner. On to Brooklyn versus Charlotte here. Miles, Mikal Bridges. I think he's a solid play. Hasn't had a big breakout game yet this season, but we know he has that upside. So I wouldn't mind going to him here in this spot. Ben Simmons does have some huge upside. As you can see, that last game, 10, 10, 8, 2, and 2. Saw 32 minutes, which was good to see. So I actually have a good amount of interest in Ben Simmons at 6,400. Same thing with Dinwiddie. He played 40 minutes, went for 40 fantasy points. I do think that price tag is a little bit too cheap for him there. Cam Thomas has been great the first 2 games. So it's just one of those things, he's pretty scoring dependent. So if he hits his shots, he'll definitely get you there. But if he misses his shots, obviously he has a very low floor. That's the risk there with him. But still, don't mind riding the hot streak there with him at $6,000. Claxton is, I think he'll be out. Yeah, he'll be out still. And same thing with Cam Johnson. So, they threw in Royce O'Neal and DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith in place of those 2. So I think these both are, very, very solid value. I'd rather get to Royce O'Neal, a little bit better of a scorer than Dorian Finney-Smith, but I think they're both really, really solid value. And then off the bench, we'll get some Lonnie Walker, who should see about 20-ish minutes. Didn't look like he played that last game. Or no, it looks like he did. Didn't play the first one, did play the second one. So I think he's a fine value play there. De'Aaron Sharp, maybe he gets to start because Mark Williams is pretty tall. I do think I could see them using him and his size, but let's wait and see. If he starts, he's great. Obviously, if he comes off the bench, then it's really risky playing him at 4,500. He was super chalk, only played 3 minutes that last game. And then Dennis Smith will get a few minutes there, but nothing too crazy. On the Charlotte side here, starting at the top with LaMelo. I think it's a fine spin up play. Has huge upside. Yeah, that's all I have for him. Terry Rozier, he's just a risky play here. Don't love the price tag just because LaMelo eats up so much of those peripheral stats that it's really hard for Terry Rozier to get there right now, kind of being just the strictly shooting guard. So not much to like there with Terry. Gordon Hayward, fine play. He's been solid through the first two games there. Decent price tag. Mark Williams looks really, really good. Coming off a very disappointing game there, 21. Did have a ton of foul trouble, so that really limited him. But as we saw the first game, has massive, massive upside. PJ Washington, kind of one of those, shoulder shrug plays. Should see about 30-ish minutes. Can he stay out of foul trouble? If he can, he should have a solid game. So I do have some interest in these Charlotte guys. They all do seem a little bit too cheap, but a lot of them have dealt with some foul trouble. So that's kind of the downside with them. Brandon Miller, I guess, has been fine, but I just don't love the price tag there for him. And then if you do think Mark Williams gets a foul trouble, Nick Richards will be the backup center, but they're not getting him a ton of run yet. And that's really it. Moving on to Portland here, Portland versus Toronto. It does seem like Portland's very, very cheap, but once again, they got blown out tonight. They're a very bad team, so a lot of these guys are cheap because the minutes are just in flux due to the blowout risk here. So Ayton, I think he's a fine play. I don't know what he put up tonight. I don't think he did the best going against DeAndre Ayton. I like Grant once again. It's just, if this game stays close, Grant should have a solid game. He's been super aggressive offensively. Just really hasn't been knocking down his shots. But I think Grant, once again, is a very solid play. Same with Shaden Sharp. In blowout run, he should still see the minutes, hopefully. So I think right now, Grant and Sharp are my favorite plays. Scoot Henderson has the upside, but once again, he's just super foul prone. I think he got in massive foul trouble again tonight. So if he could just stay out of foul trouble, I think he'd be a solid play. Brogdon, another solid play here, 5,600. He should come off the bench, be super aggressive, lead the second unit. Should see about 30-ish minutes. It's just the risk with Portland is that, that blowout risk. If the game's going to stay close, I really like Brogdon, Sharp, and Grant. If you think it's going to blow out, then don't really like many of them besides maybe taking a shot on Kamara, who actually did have a decent night tonight. Moving on to Toronto here. Great spot for Toronto. It's just, will this game stay close? If you think it does, really, really like Scotty Barnes, really like Dennis Schroeder here. And Pascal, I guess, is a fine play. But yeah, point Scotty. Hard not to love him here in this spot. It's been super, super productive. Price really hasn't moved yet. So I'm going to keep loading up on Scotty Barnes. Dennis Schroeder has been super aggressive the first three games. As you can see, has really, really solid upside. So I think it's another great price tag for him there at 5,900. But obviously, it's just the blowout risk here with this game. So if you think it stays close, I actually do really like targeting this game here. OG is questionable. Obviously, if he's out, Gary Trent did start for him, scoring dependent guard, but he should see the minutes in the shot attempts. Poto always has upside. It's just, can he see the mid to high 30s or mid 20s to maybe 30 minutes? That's just the risk there with rostering him. Precious is questionable. If Precious does miss, we could definitely look to a guy like Boucher, who's super, super really, 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 really good in terms of points per minute, fantasy point wise. So 3,800, it'd be a solid value there if there is no Precious. But if there is Precious, Precious be an okay play. Moving on to Minnesota versus Atlanta here. Minnesota side, Anthony Edwards, I love him here in the spots. Coming off a pretty bad game there, only 19 points, 7 to 15. Nothing too crazy, DFS wise, I should say. But yeah, I love him in the spot going against the Hawks. Towns, solid play here, 8,400. I do like the price tag on him. Gobert, I just never loved playing Gobert. He's been okay through the first two games, but just not for me. Does have that upside though. Conley, okay price tag. It's just seen about 30 minutes. Kyle Anderson, kind of the same thing. It's just, if you land on these guys, I don't mind it, but no one really sticks out besides kind of the two at the top in SGA. Anthony Edwards and Karl Towns. Naz Reid can't have those big pop-up games off the bench. He's kind of like that Bobby Porter role or Bobby Portis role where they'll come off the bench. He'll see a little bit more minutes than Bobby Portis, as you can see, 24 and 28. So it looks like he'll get mid-20s minutes, 5,000. Don't mind him there. He'll be aggressive. And that's really it. NAW has seen the starts, but hasn't been doing much with them. On the Atlanta side here, I really like Trae Young. Once again, it's just, shot the ball terribly the first three games so far. 4 of 19, 4 of 16. I think tonight he went like 4 of 20. Something terrible again, but he did get 40 fantasy points. So He's had a very solid floor, even shooting the ball terribly. So one of these games, he's going to hit his shots. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's this game here. So 9,000 for him. Do really like him. Murray's fine. I mean, Capella, if he can just stay out of foul trouble, should see about 30-ish minutes. He does have some upside. Jalen Johnson's been super, super good. Price hasn't moved. I think he's a very, very strong play there at 5,000. And as I mentioned, one of these other wings will probably have a good game. I always feel safest going to Bogdan just because he's the most aggressive out of the bunch of him, Bay, Hunter, but they're all in play. And then Okongwu, always a decent value option there in the center position. Moving on to Dallas here in Memphis. On the Dallas side, I mean, Luka's Luka, 12K, really hard to get to him. Not a ton of value sticking out right now, so it would be a little bit tough getting to Luka, but we know the upside there with him. I mean, Kyrie playing alongside Luka, don't love that right now. Lively does seem a little bit too pricey for me. Tim Hardaway can always have those random pop-off games off the bench, so if you land on him, that's fine. And that's really it. Not much stands out to me here on the Dallas side. Luka has just been taking up so much, soaking up so much usage. Memphis side, the ball should go through Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. Triple J's price has finally come up to a spot where he's not going to be super, super chalk, so I don't mind landing on him. Smart's price has risen as well, 6,500. So they're all kind of getting to that price where they're just fine plays. Nothing really stands out to me. Same thing with Tillman, priced him up a bunch there, 6,500. So nothing too crazy here in terms of the Memphis side. Santi looks like he's out once again. So Zaire Williams should get the start, 4,600. He actually had a pretty solid game last game and the game before. So I guess he's an okay play there at 4,600. Roddy will see some minutes. He's okay value, 3,800. 2 games, close to 20 fancy points or more. Conchar, he's been solid the first 2 games, so don't mind running him. And D Rose, always mentioned him as some value play. Seen about 20-ish minutes, but he's been productive when he's out there. So 3,500, don't mind him as some point guard value. Moving on to the last half of these games here, Detroit and OKC. Detroit, Cade Cunningham, 8,800. I think he's a fine spin up play. Always seems pretty low owned, but he's been super aggressive. Minutes have been great. It's his team, so I think he's a strong, strong pay up option there at 8,800. Jalen Duren's been an absolute monster, as you can see, pretty much averaging 50 fantasy points per game so far. Been super, super efficient. 8 of 11, 7 of 8, 9 and 11. Minutes haven't been too great there. 32, 35, 33. You kind of like to see, 35, maybe 36, but still been super, super good, super, super productive. So I don't mind riding the hot streak here, going up against Chet Holmgren. I mean, Jalen Duren's going to absolutely bully him. So love him once again in this spot. Thompson's been super productive off the bench. As you can see, he's just rebounding the ball and getting a ton of assists. Can't hit his shots, but he's been super, super productive peripheral stat-wise. So I don't mind him there at 5,500. Very high energy guy. Stewart has upside. It's just one of those things, playing alongside Duren. Going to be hard to get a ton of boards, but still, he's been doing pretty solid there. So another very strong value played 5,200 in the kind of the lower mid-range. Ivy, it just comes down to will there be foul trouble with the starting guards, or if he hits a few shots, he'll get extended. If not, minutes are kind of in flux. Killian Hayes, minutes have been dropping, and then Alec Burks is kind of the scoring guard off the bench who will be aggressive. So I don't mind going to him if you want a little bit riskier but solid value player there at 4,500. Bagley will see some minutes off the bench, but nothing too crazy there. Don't think you need to get to him. And that's really it. Moving on to the OKC side. Terrible game there for SGA, as you can see. 28 minutes to get blown out. 2 of 16 today. Expect a nice bounce back here for him against Detroit. Should be absolute Swiss cheese for him. No one's going to be able to guard him. Josh Giddey, 7,100. Feels priced about right. Chet Holmgren. I played him here against the Bulls. Did terrible. Then he pops off at 53. But that's kind of the Chet Holmgren experience we'll get through this first half of the season where minutes won't be the best. He'll have some foul trouble. He'll look good one game, look terrible the next. So I think he's an okay play. I do like Jalen Williams here, 5,800. He's been aggressive that last game. Obviously blew out. He started off terrible there in the first quarter. I don't know if he scored a point, but then turned it on in that second quarter. But obviously they blew out, so he lost a decent amount of minutes. But yeah, in a close game, you should see 35 minutes. He should shoot the ball probably around 15 times. Gets those peripheral stats. So I think he's a solid play there at 5,800. And that's really it. I mean, Lou Dort can have those random pop-off games. He'll see 35 minutes. Don't mind him. Kenrich Williams might be back. If he's back, I'd say he probably plays about 15 to 20 minutes. They've been giving Kaysen Wallace some run. He's an okay play down there. And Isaiah Joe will get some run as well. Super score independence, but he does have some upside if he hits his shots. Moving on to Golden State and the Pelicans here. Great game environment. Really, really like this game to get a few pieces from. Steph is Steph. Chris Paul has actually been super productive. I think he had a decent game tonight. Nothing too crazy there, but he did come off the bench. So don't love the price tag there with him coming off the bench, even though he should still probably see mid to high 20s minutes. Klay Thompson, he's one of those things, he's going to be super low owned. It's just, you really need him to hit his shots. Otherwise, he's going to screw you with that price tag. So he's just more so of a very random or very contrarian GPP play, which obviously we know with Klay can go for 40, 45 real life points. It's just hard to really trust him. Wiggins, 6,400. I mean, he's not seeing the again tonight. He only saw 20, I think 7 minutes. Still has not seen 30 minutes or more. So I hate this price tag. He's just not seeing the minutes. He's been super, super bad in terms of shooting the ball, and he's been super, super bad in terms of peripheral stats. I know, this game here against Sacramento did fine, 5, 3, and 2 blocks, but tonight he got 0 peripheral stats. He had no stats in the first quarter, and he finished the game with only 13 points and 0 peripheral stats. So, Draymond Green back, Chris Paul back. It just seems like Wiggins is just kind of lost right now. They're giving more minutes to Kuminga as well off the bench and Moody. So right now, Wiggins is the odd man out, so I don't like the price tag at all for him. Draymond Green only saw 21 minutes tonight. I would assume he's going to be on a minutes limit as well tomorrow or tonight. Excuse me, tomorrow. So I don't love that price tag right now for him. It kind of lowers the ceiling there for Kevin Looney with Draymond Green back, getting more assists, getting more rebounds there. Coming off the bench, I think he saw mid 20s minutes again, so I think he's a fine play, but nothing too crazy. I don't know if I'd go out of my way to play him. Moody, same thing. He'll see about 20-ish minutes. They're kind of eating into Wiggins' minutes. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to zoom in. Saric should see about 15-ish minutes. He's an okay play there. And Gary Payton's always a decent value play. I think he actually led the team in terms of scoring today for the Warriors, if I'm not mistaken. Should see about 20-ish minutes. Can't have those random pop-off games where he goes for like 20, 25 fantasy points. So if you need a cheap value guard, I don't mind going to him. On the Pelicans side here, Zion at 8,900. Love the matchup here. So I think Zion's a very solid play. Once again, really, really like the spot for Brandon Ingram. I think, Draymond will be on Zion. I think Klay Thompson will probably be on Brandon Ingram. And, Klay's kind of lost a step here. Brandon Ingram had a great game there last game. Only played 32 minutes, which didn't love to see that, but 11 of 17, 26, 7, and 3. So he is really, really solid upside, even playing alongside these other two stars in Zion and CJ. But once again, I think it's a very, very solid price tag for the spot here for Brandon Ingram. CJ, fine play there. Don't mind him. Been decent in the first 2 games. J-Val, good spot here against Kevon Looney. It's just one of those things. Can he stay out of foul trouble? If he can, he should play about 30 minutes, and he's priced pretty cheap. He has monster upside. It's just one of those things. The Warriors also do like to play small, so maybe that limits J-Val. So he's super risky, but he has huge upside in GPP. So I don't mind sprinkling him in a few lineups there. Herb Jones should see a ton of minutes. I think it's a strong value play at 5,000. Could be a Larry Nance game if you think J-Val gets in foul trouble, or if the Warriors go small, they could look to Larry Nance. So he could see about 20-ish minutes. Don't mind him there. Taking a shot on him at 4,000. Dyson Daniels will see some minutes. Nothing too crazy. Same thing with Kira Lewis, but I'd rather take a shot on Larry Nance or Herb Jones if you're kind of going down that route. Moving on to Miami and Milwaukee here. Miami, they rested Jimmy Butler the other day, so him coming back, kind of a revenge game here for Miami versus Milwaukee. Jimmy absolutely owned them in the playoffs, so I expect Jimmy to come out being super aggressive. So I think he'd be a strong contrarian, pay up option here that no one's going to play and get to, but he absolutely owns the Milwaukee Bucks. So wouldn't be surprised if he's extremely aggressive here in the spot against Milwaukee tomorrow night. Bam's a fine play there, 8,000. Nothing too crazy. Tyler Hero finally priced up about right, 7,400. Going to be super aggressive offensively, so I don't mind him still. I think he's solid price tag in him. Kyle Lowry, I think is a solid play. He's not going to shoot the ball a ton. Going to be more so of a facilitator, but if he does get aggressive offensively and hits a few threes, I mean he has that mid 30s upside for fantasy points. So I don't mind going to him there at 5.3K. Caleb Martin might be back if he is, or it looks like he's doubtful once again. So unfortunately, can't get to him. I do like Kevin Love a lot. Saw 28 minutes in the first game, 21 in the second game. Super productive both games. So, not Miami. The Bucks, they have a lot of size. So they're going to need Kevin Love in his defense, helping out with Giannis, Brook Lopez, whatever it may be. So I do really like Kevin Love here. He's been seeing way more minutes than he did last year. Last year, he's limited about 15 to 20 minutes a game, which made him super risky. But right now, he's at the same price tag as he was last year, and he's seeing about 10 more minutes per game if the game stays close. So yeah, really, really like Kevin Love in this spot against Milwaukee. They're going to need his size. Jason Richardson might be back. Nope, doubtful again. So off the bench, they're going to throw in Thomas Bryant a little bit. Maybe you could take a shot on him if you think, Kevin Love, or if you think Bam is in foul trouble, because they're going to need his size to guard Brook Lopez and Giannis. So could be, possible dart throw play there for someone going to want to get risky. Duncan Robinson will see mid-20s minutes, just very score independent there. Jovic will probably get, I'd say, maybe 10-ish minutes. Jaquez, value play. He's kind of been on a minutes limit. If that gets lifted, I actually don't mind taking a shot on him. 3,500 should see about 20-ish minutes. I think he'd be an okay value play. Moving on to Milwaukee here. Great spot for Giannis, 11K. I think Damon Giannis are kind of priced about right. Middleton should be back, but he's on a minutes limit, so don't love that. Brook Lopez, I think, would be my favorite play, 6,400. Does have some, ability to go off there, pop off. And that's really it. Bobby Portis off the bench, priced about right, 5,700. Nothing really, really sticks out to me here. I mean, Crowder getting run, same with Pat Connaughton. But Crowder, he started today because there was no Middleton, but he'll probably move back to the bench because I do think Middleton will be back. So yeah, nothing really too crazy on the Milwaukee side. Utah side here, I love Laurie, 8,700. There's a little bit of blowout risk. The Jazz have not been the best, but it should be the Laurie marketing show if this game does stay close. As you can see, versus the Clippers, he put up a 57 bomb. So good upside there. And it's one of those things where the price tag does keep a lot of people away in GPPs. So he's always pretty low owned. Jordan Clarkson, I think, is a very solid price tag here. Minutes weren't great in that obviously blowout against the Suns, but in a close game, he should see, mid to low 30s minutes, and he should be decently aggressive. So I do like Jordan Clarkson a good amount. Walker Kessler, more so just a super contrarian GPP play. John Collins, price came up a little bit, but still, I think it's a strong play here. Should see about mid to low 30s minutes. Yeah, and they're going to need his size against Aaron Gordon. So I actually think he's a decent play there. My kind of second favorite play on the Utah Jazz side, tied with Lauri Markkanen, and my favorite play would be Jordan Clarkson there at 6,000. Horton Tucker has been terrible. Minutes are dropping down, so don't want to get to him. Kelly Olynyk will always have those random pop-off games. He's actually been a decent value, 4,800. Minutes haven't been great, but he is definitely there. Keontae George is seeing more minutes. Obviously, got a little bit more run there with the blowouts, but should see about 15 minutes. Don't love the price tag there, though, at 4,600. They'll throw in Chris Dunn as well, 20-ish minutes. I mean, Colin Sexton, the same thing, 20-ish minutes, maybe mid-20s. I think it'd be my favorite value play here on the Utah side, but they are running a lot of people there. Denver side, Jokic, kind of same thing as I said with Luka. We know the upside there with them. It's just, do you feel safe with the value? Murray, I think he's fine there, 7,900, priced up a little bit. Gordon, MPJ, KCP, my same spiel every time. One of them will have a good game. If I had to choose every time, it'd probably be MPJ, just because he's going to shoot the ball a ton. And he's been really, really solid in terms of rebounding. So I think MPJ would be my favorite of the bunch, but all three of them should see about, mid 30s minutes. KCP's minutes kind of always in flex, but yeah, I mean, I think all three are viable. Jackson will come off the bench, play about 15 to 20 minutes. Right now, he's been playing a little bit more, about 20-ish, 2-ish. Najee's there, Brown's there. Nothing really stands out to me. And then moving on to the last game here, Orlando and the Lakers game. Orlando, the offense runs through Paolo and Franz right now. Yeah, my thoughts on Orlando is they're all pretty cheap. It's just one of those things. You never feel great rostering any of these guys here. Tough matchup against the Lakers. I still think, Markelle Fultz is my favorite play. Minutes haven't been great the first two games, 25 and 25, but we know he has huge upside. So wouldn't be surprised if he has a breakout game here going against D'Lo defense, who's actually been better. But yeah, Cole Anthony will be kind of that microwave scorer off the bench. First two games really, really solid. So I guess he's an okay play. And, Mo Wagner could get more run if, Wendell gets in foul trouble. He does have those random pop-off games there. I'll mention Isaac as, super cheap value, who does have some upside there. And they probably will need him to guard Anthony Davis as well. So wouldn't be surprised if he gets more run, maybe about 15 minutes. So right now, nothing really too crazy stands out to me on the Orlando side. I'd say probably Markelle, Cole Anthony, and maybe, forcing some Jonathan Isaac value. And then moving on to the Lakers here. Anthony Davis, I think it's a great spot for him here. Back to back, they are playing tonight, so maybe they rest them. I don't know. That new rule makes no sense because teams are already going against it. LeBron does feel a little bit too pricey. It'll be interesting to see how many minutes he plays tonight. I didn't take a look yet. I think D'Lo's still priced pretty fairly at 6,100. Same thing with Reeves. I think they're fine plays. And that's about it. Everyone else is kind of priced around right. They really priced up Rui. So yeah, nothing too crazy there for the Lakers side. So right now, this is the lineup that I like. Let's see if we can finish off this build here. Scotty Barnes, 7,700. Anthony Edwards, Brandon Ingram, Kevin Love. We do have Miles Turner. We'll move him here into the center spot. And then about 4,600 left over. Cheap guard. Let's just go for a cheap guard. We'll go with a value play here with D Rose. Throw him in there. 5,200 left over for both these spots. Let's going to see what we can get in this forward spot here for around that 5K range. Maybe we'll pay down a little bit, but nothing too crazy. I do like Herb Jones there at 5,000. He should see a decent amount of minutes trying to guard the guys on Golden State. So right now, I do think we're going to pay down a little bit here. Let's try to find some better value. Nothing too crazy in this forward range here, though, in terms of value that's really sticking out. Oh, we'll go to Royce O'Neal here for the Nets there with no Claxton and no Cam Johnson. So I think that's a solid play there. And then 6,200 left over here. Let's see what we can get. Draymond Gordon, Looney, Dinwiddie does stick out. Russell. Oh, Jordan Clarkson. I'm going to go to Jordan Clarkson there. 6,000. Or you can go to Cam Thomas. Kind of both similar plays. Jordan Clarkson a little bit better at the peripheral stats. But yeah, I like, or Schroeder. I think right now, I'll land on Clarkson, but really like all three of those guys that you can get to there at 6,000. So this is the early look build. As always, stay updated with the injury news on my Twitter. I'll have my core plays, final core plays for the night about 30 minutes before on my Twitter as well. Hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.